What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another War Within video. Hope you're all doing very, very well. We've got another Holy Paladin video. I just wanted to show some of the healing in the raid, the new raid that's coming up. I got to test the second last boss of the raid. Where is it here? In the Nerub'ar Palace. So we got to try the Silken Court. It's like a cleave fight. I'll show you in a second. It's not like a council fight that we're used to having. It was just basically a cleave fight for most of the time. There are, I think, 3 different enemies, but the scarabs are more like ads, and then there's 2 main enemies that you're fighting most of the time. So it was very interesting. I'm going to show you the build that I ran. This was on Holy Paladin, and it was a melee build. Now, I tried both of the hero talents, so you'll see that in the footage. My TLDR would essentially be that I think Herald of the Sun is like much better for raid healing scenarios, and I think Lightsmith is going to end up being much, much better in the Mythic Plus environment, where you want a lot of damage and healing if you want to get both, but you don't need like crazy amounts of healing necessarily. Herald, I think, is just has the ability to pump way more healing if you need it. Lightsmith is a little bit more limited in that way, but of course has the ability to pump ridiculous amounts of damage once you get all the swords going. So I did try both of them, and then this was my talent tree. I did a melee build, so we focused on Crusader Strike. I forgot to take this node, which somebody was saying in my other comments, you should be, you know, why aren't you taking it? It's a good idea. It would be a good talent to take. My argument against Crusader's Might is that reducing the cooldown of Holy Shock inside of your Avenging Crusader window actually has very little value, because inside your Avenging Crusader window, you want to be pressing Crusader Strike and Judgment over and over and over again. That's what you're essentially doing, because that will produce way more healing than any other button you could possibly press. So you're sort of losing half the value, I would say, of Crusader's Might inside Avenging Crusader. But outside of Avenging Crusader, this has a ton of value, and it's something that you should absolutely be taking. I think you could probably drop Truth Prevails if you wanted to and put that in there like that. I did not do that in this video footage, but here's the build. I did not have Tears Deliverance. I was doing a melee build. We did have, you know, Crusader Strike, healing for more, generating more. I did have Hand of Divinity as well. And yeah, this is kind of what it looks like. So let's just dive right into that and see what it looks like in the raid. So I think what is important to oh, sorry, yeah, okay. So in this first footage, sorry, I had my brain fart there. I'm starting as the Lightsmith. So again, I will say, I think Lightsmith produces less healing overall than Herald of the Sun. The Herald of the Sun, you know, heals. You wog somebody. It's called Eternal Flame when you're doing Herald of the Sun, and it also puts that hot on them, which is really nice. And all the hots that you get rolling on people will go into your beacon healing, and it just feels really, really cool. For Lightsmith, you know, it's about the huge shields you're putting on people, and then once you do pop Avenging Crusader, you summon an extra sacred weapon. That sacred weapon is going to actually copy your damage or your healing, whatever you're doing. So if you're doing a bunch of healing, it will copy that, which is really cool. So there is some value in Lightsmith. I just think the consistent healing over time that we were getting from almost gotta follow. That's hilarious. I think the consistent healing over time that we were getting from Herald of the Sun is going to prove to be better in a raid scenario. Let me just see if I look at the numbers here really quickly. There it is. So that's after 1 pull. That was our healing on 1 pull. Again, Holy Shock is doing way more healing now than it used to, because Glimmer is gone. I really love that. It feels amazing. Word of Glory, Holy Bulwark, the Lightsmith shields are still doing a lot of healing. Don't get me wrong. They're very, very good. Then Beacon and Avenging Crusader. Rite of Adjuration is another bonus that we get for being Lightsmith, which is super cool. And then there's the Sacred Weapon down there. The Sacred Weapon and the Sacred Word. I think that you combine those together. Sacred Weapon, Sacred Word. That's healing from my super sword that I summon when I pop my wings. Okay, you get a really big sword. He's copying my healing. So that's him doing that down there. So it's not that there's no healing here at all. It's definitely there. I just think that I just think it is a bit less value, and you're going to see once we get to the Herald of the Sun portion. I think you're probably going to see that. So here I pop my wings, and then I'm healing, and I start pumping a lot of healing. I think the sword that I've summoned, I don't know if he does extra damage. Like when you press Crusader Strike and you have your super sword summoned, I'm going to keep saying that over and over again. I'm not sure if he does damage or if he does healing, because you're doing both. When you press Crusader Strike with Avenging Crusader up, you're doing damage and then you're healing people. So I'm not entirely sure what the super sword is going to end up copying. It's hard to see like on this fight. I really have no idea what's going on for half of it, but these guys do a little dash here. Basically, there's webs that will spawn on the ground, and you have to dash this big Nerubian guy into a bunch of webs. You can see he's all wrapped up in webs right now. If you do not, then he does like 80% of everybody's health, basically, if he like slams into a wall. So you have to position him. That's probably a tank mechanic, basically positioning him to charge into one of these webs that's on the ground. That's sort of the big mechanic of P1. Then there's these green swirlies that you're dropping, that you don't want to overlap them. I think it's a disease. You could see multiple people overlapped there. That's very dangerous. You don't want to do that. And then there are poisons that go out on random on the tank. Sorry. Now I found dispelling the poisons was pretty much a futile effort there, because they just got reapplied like right away. So I think my advice for this fight on the poison front would be to bring a shaman and to just have poison cleanse totem, and poison cleanse totem will help to deal with those poisons. It wasn't like destroying our tanks, but it wasn't helpful to have a poison on them just like the entire time. There you go. We dash into the webs again. Okay. And then I don't know if we get to P2 here. In P2, the other tall Nerub'ar, yeah, he's doing it right here. He's got Shatter Existence. He sends out these like pizza slices of webs, and you have to run. He's going to start detonating them in a second. He's going to detonate this one over here. Okay, boom. And then here comes the next one, boom. And then you need to run into the empty space after he's detonated it. If you get hit by, like, on Mythic, I'm assuming if you get hit by one of these, you're probably dead. On Heroic, I think you're probably almost dead. So I'm not sure if we were on normal. I don't even know what the difficulty was of this raid, but it was definitely a challenge. I think on Heroic, you're probably also going to almost die. But even on normal, you didn't die if you got hit by it. So that's P2. This Shatter Existence, you need to get through his shield. I don't know if you can, like, bring a warrior and throw, like, a shattering, whatever it's called, shattering throw, I think. And it might break shields. Or I don't think you could break the entire shield, but maybe it does a substantial amount of damage to the shield. Maybe something like that. But there you go. That's what we're doing on Lightsmith, okay? Let me just fast forward ahead here to when we switch to Herald of the Sun. So I've got Herald of the Sun now. This is actually perfect. This is the start of a fight. So I have Herald of the Sun. I've lost my Lightsmith shields. I'm now doing big Eternal Flames on people. I found Eternal Flame almost kind of feels like the old Glimmer. Not in the sense that it like obviously heals somebody else when I wog a different person because they have a Glimmer. I don't mean that part. I just mean like with Glimmer Paladin, you used to have to set up your Holy Shocks. You would pre-Holy Shock people. So a ton of the value of your Holy Shocks would be just in like setting them up. Not so much in the actual Holy Shock itself. It would be in like the Glimmer that followed. So it feels like to me that Word of Glory, like sometimes I'm going to throw a wog on somebody, even though they don't necessarily need a ton of healing, but I'm going to throw it onto them because it puts that heal over time on them. And then that's going to, you put that on like 5, 6, 7, 8 people. Suddenly you have a lot of healing going. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 wogs going and a Dawn Light over here. It's just really cool how Herald of the Sun ends up working with all the healing over time. You're going to have multiple Eternal Flames on different people. You're going to have Dawn Lights on people. And then you're going to have your beacons on people. So you're going to have a bunch of healing over time ticking away, and then going into your beacons, ticking away onto those people as well. It's a really, really cool combo. I love it. I think it's actually very fun to play in a raid and provides a very different play style for Holy Paladin in just period, especially in a raid. You could do this in Mythic Plus, but again, I think Lightsmith is a little bit better suited to Mythic Plus. So in the raid scenario, it's just really cool as a holy paladin to have all this healing over time, just bumping up people constantly, rather than it being just like big burst moment, big burst moment. You still have those big burst moments. Don't get me wrong. When you pop Avenging Crusader, when you pop Divine Toll, you can still have these really big burst moments, which is great, but it does not feel the same, I don't think, as it's just a little bit different now with in between those sort of high points where you're nuking people with big heals. You're going to drop down, and instead of sort of dropping really far down, now you're going to have a little bit more of an ebb and flow because you have the consistent HPS happening behind the scenes. So I really enjoyed this, and I think in a raid scenario, this build produces much more healing. I think on the Lightsmith, I was getting like 500-600, maybe getting close to 700k HPS. And then as the Herald of the Sun, I was consistently 700,000 to like 900,000 healing per second. So that felt really cool to me. I kept messing up this mechanic. Yeah, I even died there. That felt really good to me. And I think Herald of the Sun is a better option in a raid. Just because of, the extra HPS that it is providing. We had to fill a couple roles here. I apologize. Well, there we go. Back to the fight. We also learned how to do this fight better. The longer it went on, the better we learned, the better it got, and that kind of thing. But also with the, I just want to touch on like Rising Sunlight, the new talent as well. That's where if you pop Avenging Wrath or Divine Toll, you make your next 2 Holy Shocks are going to shock twice again, right? Let me read it here. Your next 2 Holy Shocks will cast 2 additional times. So that means that you'll press Holy Shock for 1 time, and then it'll hit 2 additional times for 3 in total. So your next 2 Holy Shocks will essentially be a triple Holy Shock. Does that make sense? Bing, 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 bing. So again, you have your beacons on. That is still a very powerful cooldown. It's even more powerful than it was before because Holy Shock isn't hitting like a wet noodle now because Glimmer is gone. It's hitting very, very hard. So you can see, as in terms of the healing per second, me and the Monk are we were fighting for first place there, just bouncing back and forth depending on what cooldowns we had available. But we were pumping a lot of healing here, and I could really feel it as the Herald of the Sun. I felt it more so than on Lightsmith for sure. Either way, though, I think that you can take a Holy Paladin melee build into the raid, and I do think that you can finally have that like fantasy, that play style works, in my opinion. You can take Avenging Crusader and focus on being a melee healer in the raid environment. You don't have to just stand back and press healing, Flash of Light or Holy Light. Send it in. Those are really good spells, don't get me wrong, but I think that the melee build is actually better because it's much more mana efficient. For example, Crusader Strike costs and Word of Glory, they cost 15,000 mana. Okay, my Holy Light costs 150,000 mana. It's literally like 10 times more expensive to press Holy Light than it is to press Crusader Strike. So if I can just make Crusader Strike heal people through Avenging Crusader, I am not only saving a ridiculous amount of mana, but I'm also actually probably producing more healing because inside Avenging Crusader, you do produce so much healing. So I really like this build. You can say I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Eternal Flames and a Barrier of Faith on somebody. And then, I'm Holy Shocking. It's just like really cool. You have this consistency going on. I think this build works really, really well. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below for Holy Paladin for raid. I think it's in a really, really good spot. And I'm excited. I'd be excited to play it in the War Within. I'm getting much closer to choosing my main. I think that Holy Paladin is on my short list of healers that I really want to play. Like, honestly, if I had to order them right now for you, I basically have a DPS and an HPS main sort of category. So for example, my top 3 healers right now, if I had to choose a main, in the top 3 would be Holy Paladin, Shaman, either version of Resto Shaman, and then actually Preservation Evoker would be my third one there. Okay, so those would be like my top 3 healers, but Holy Paladin is actually at the top of my list because I just think that it feels really fun to play right now. They have absolutely fixed all the problems that existed in terms of your sort of having a million different cooldowns that felt like they were all doing a tiny bit of healing. They have now condensed that and made it so that you have less buttons that all do much more, which is awesome to see. Really enjoyable. Let me look at my healing there. This is the healing, what it looks like if you're doing the Herald of the Sun build. Again, Eternal Flame is going to be big. Our Holy Shock, once again, as I just finished saying, Holy Shock feels like a much better button now. Beacon, Avenger Crusader, there's your Dawn Lights, and then everything else. So if we look at just what Herald of the Sun contributed, it's hard to sort of quantify that because Word of Glories are being replaced by Eternal Flames. But I do have Sun's Avatar was 2.3%. Sun's Heroes No. 1, so that's 3.3%. And then the Dawn Lights were 9%. So you're looking at 12.5% of your healing coming from the hero tree plus the Eternal Flame heal over time. So it is really, really strong. I think it's a fantastic build. And I can't wait to keep trying it again. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. What healer are you planning to play in the War Within? I would love to hear from you down there. Thank you so much again for watching. Love you all. I will see you in the next one.